My dear Bagginses and Buffins.
By the blood of our people, will your lands kept safe.
I see in your eyes the same fear that will take the heart of me.
So do all who live to see such times.
My all that you hold dear. This good earth. There's some good in this earth, and it's worth fighting.
Welcome back, everyone. We are continuing our revisit, our re-review of the Rings of Power. This is episode 2. If you didn't catch our first episode, take a look in the comments down below, and I'm going to pin it there. But yeah, episode 2, we open into... my note is, Galadriel realizes the stupidity of her decision to full effect.
I actually wrote that I thought the opening credits and music are good.
Okay, well, so yeah, you can say that with a bunch of the episodes, so I guess we'll do it here. The opening credits are good. They are practical effects. It's crazy. Same as the that shot of the fire forming the title card. That's also practical. So
That's cool.
Kudos to them using both the cool fire effect as well as speakers with like grains of sand on it to make those cool designs.
Yeah.
Very cool practical effects. And yeah, now we are swimming in the ocean. And
Yeah, you wrote. So remind me what you wrote, that she realizes the folly of her decision.
yeah. So and I even made a comment here in case I had pushback on this. So she has no food, no drinking water.
Yeah.
And she has to swim consistently for months.
Yes. So yeah, I wrote. Yeah, we begin with Galadriel in the ocean at night. Yes, it's silly. I'm trying to be generous, I see here. It's silly, but it really does show her determination and what is going on in her mind and heart.
That's fair. That's fair. I think we could show that other ways, but I'm gonna let it go because I can't change it now. So here we go. That's it. Like, that's the opening shot of it, which again, it's kind of weird that that's the opening shot. I don't know if it was needed. I know we have to get back to Galadriel eventually, but do we need to do that, then cut to Meteor Man? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, could we not have started with Meteor Man? Anyway, I like this setting, what they've done here. I have one slight complaint on the look of this, because it looks really cool, but it looks like it would be too hot for Nori to enter.
But the fire's not hot for some reason.
Yes, which they don't say right away.
Yeah.
So that was my only tidbit when I watched it again. I was like, wow, that looks incredibly hot. They're standing really close, and then they do eventually get to that. So good on them for making that comment. And then, but it looks really cool. I don't think it's practical. I think it's CGI, but it looks really good.
Alright, then I have Malva, again, is shown to be more superstitious than Sadak. She wants to break camp because of the starfall.
And she makes a good point here, though.
Yeah.
How many signs do you need? That's my question. Sadak, what is the point of the book if you're not going to listen to the signs? She's right. I kind of agree.
And then we learn that, like, Nori has kind of a sense of grandeur about finding the stranger. She's like, I was meant to find him. My own. It came to me.
Yeah. Oh man, you took it. You took it in a silly direction. I was taking it. I mean, not silly, like in a deep, dark direction. I was taking it more in like the scene where Frodo and Sam are kind of joking about maybe there'll be great songs sung about us someday, and Frodo's like, I want to know more about Sam. That's where I kind of took it, where it's kind of got that like...
I think they earned their sense of grandeur at that point.
True. I agree. I'm just saying that's where I thought maybe she was going with this. Like, I'm going to save this Meteor Man and be a hero. Like she wants songs sung about her or something. I don't know.
And also, like, Sam and Frodo, they're trying to pump each other up. It's not like Sam's like talking about it's not Frodo and Sam talking about the self. It starts with Sam talking about Frodo first.
True.
And then Frodo being like, "Hold up, no, Sam, you're important too."
You're right. You're right.
There's actually a lot of humility there.
You're right. There's none of that here. You're right. Why did I even think about that? It's not even comparable. My one thing here is I do like this concept that they're going for. They just linger on it a bit too much. So Poppy has already confronted Nori about this multiple times throughout this entire multi-scene event taking place with the Harfoots. And the question is, Nori, why are you doing this? He's a stranger. Why are you obsessed with this? And
yeah, they have no like hospitality in their culture.
but the thing is, Nori has like answered the question already. To your point, she's like, I feel it's my obligation. And then they save him. They bring him up with a wheelbarrow, which is a hilarious scene. And then they ask her again, Nori, why are you doing this? And it's like, we've already been here. We've already established Nori thinks this is her duty. And if you can't get on board, then you can get out. And then Poppy is like on board. And so to your point, we talked about, it seems like this is setting up Poppy to be the reluctant adventurer alongside Nori. Yeah. But we'll get there. Is there anything else to this Harfoot scene that you have?
I didn't write anything. Nothing noteworthy.
Right. So that's what my whole point was. Like, I actually like what this scene is doing, and I like little bits throughout it, but it lingers on the same, like they keep saying the same dialogue over and over, which is Nori, what's wrong with you?
So it's a bit redundant.
Yeah.
Dragging. So we're at Hordor, and again, there's fissures in the earth. There's no bodies, no wounded. There's a passage under the house, and Arondir is gonna go check it out because he's a go-getter, and Bronwyn's gonna head back and warn the village to flee.
Yeah. So I wrote, it's sad our interspecies couple is separating, and then I wrote, he must go into the tunnels, and somewhere a dwarf is cursing that an elf is going underground. I think this is, I can't tell if this is a good move or not. So obviously we know what happens here, but in the moment, I'm trying to figure out, like, I get his point of view. It's his job to investigate these matters. But this town is all decimated and it's creepy. Like, shouldn't he go and get backup? Like,
yeah, I guess that's not how elves think.
No.
They think they can do it on. Each one thinks that I can do it.
Yeah.
Army of one.
and I mean, like, as we've seen with like Aragorn and stuff, like these kind of like ranger type guys, they're very singular solo adventure type guys. They don't go in groups that often. So I can see that. It's just, I'm looking at this tunnel going, this is some creepy stuff. I don't know if I'd go down here.
Yeah. So I think we're, what's the name of the town with Celebrimbor?
Eregion.
Eregion. They're in Eregion. And Elrond is looking at Feanor's hammer. And I kind of got parallels to like Boromir.
Yes.
Like both looking at the ring, because he's like, it's strange that so much, the dialogue that goes on there. Because he's saying strange that so much beauty could have been made with that hammer. And also got a bit of shards of Narsil going on there. Like he likes that there's an artifact. And
Celebrimbor has a bit of an ego thing going on here too, right? So he says something along the lines of like, I wish I could have like touched as much people as the creator of that. And then Elrond's like, you've touched me in the hearts of many elves. And Celebrimbor is like, I have something even bigger in mind. And it's like, whoa, wait, what's this guy is this guy really wants to shake things up. But to his credit, I actually like his train of thought where he says, I think he says like, we elves have brought so much war to this land. I want to leave it with beauty. Which, you know what? I like it. And this scene is one I criticized in the past because of the actor. I actually I completely reversed that. Someone go, re-edit my other video and put that in, because I think this is a good scene. I think the actor did a good job here. I was just caught up in the fact that I didn't like this actor at first. I think he does a good job in this scene.
Yeah, and I think I skipped most of making a lot of notes. I just went right to the when they're at the mine, and Elrond's character is kind of crafty because he'll invoke the right of Sigma Terrar just so he can get inside and see Durin.
So the reason you ignored some of the notes is because you're trying to be you're trying to be charitable, and it makes no sense that the two of them went by themselves. This is getting into the Game of Thrones problem where you get to just time jump all over the place. They walked a long distance, and they should have had an honor guard, and it should have been like a whole thing. Because Elrond says like we're going to be met with like ram horns and festivities, and I actually really like the fact that Celebrimbor are on their way, and you might even have this in your notes too. But he is excited to see the dwarves because he admires them, and this is something that is always nice to see. I like having the elves be racist against other races because that's always fun. But then I like to see these moments where they recognize the beauty in these lesser beings, and he makes a point to say like what they do with stone and how they carve it. Of course, I would love to see how they do it. Like I want to know more about any person that unlocks the mysteries of the world and that kind of stuff. So I like that about Celebrimbor and Elrond too. Both of them are very supportive of working with the dwarves, and I like seeing that. And then the dwarves, I really like the dwarves here. I know in the past I've seen people say that they didn't like this scene because of the way the dwarves looked and walked. Let me just say, they're wearing armor. Like, these are guard dwarves. They're not going to have the fluid movement of...
And they actually use, like, people with dwarfism.
Right. So there's that, which, good for them on that. And also, I actually like the fact that, like, dwarves do not move as fluidly as other creatures when they battle. Like, look at Gimli, and even look at any of the video games. The dwarves, they try to emulate like rock and stone and make like shield walls and stuff. Like, they don't move around a lot when they fight. So I am fine with these being the guards and the way they walk and the way their armor works. It's great. And I actually even really love this view of Khazad-dûm. I wish we got more of it, to be honest.
Yeah, great visuals of Khazad-dûm. There's even like, I noticed there's like farms inside too. There's literally farmers farming little fields inside.
Exactly. Yeah, like, it's a really cool visual thing that we don't get to see at any moment in any other Lord of the Rings scene.
And then we meet Durin, and he seems more temperamental and he's unhappy, whereas Elrond seems like naive to why Durin would be upset with him.
Yeah. I did make a one note here. So they have a chant. Did you catch this? So Durin walks in, and he shouts Kaza, and everyone else shouts Doom.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. It's that feels a little modern day, but yeah, you know what? I had fun with it, so I'm fine with it. I'm gonna let it go. It made me think, like, wait, what does that mean? And I looked it up. I didn't even have to look up most of it. I had to just look up what Doom meant. Because the Kaza part is dwarves, and then the Doom part is like either like tunnel or mansion, or like it's unclear exactly what it means, but it probably means dwarf mansion or something like that. So it's just an interesting thing for them to shout. But I thought it was fun. I thought everyone in this scene does a great job. It really does feel like dwarves live here, so I like that.
So Nori is speaking to the stranger, and then Largo breaks his foot, and he's still cheerful. So that's character development.
Yeah.
Character.
Yeah, and I misremembered this scene. So in my head, as we cut to this scene, I kind of rolled my eyes and groaned about what we were about to see. And it doesn't go as badly as I remember. So I remembered it where, like, everyone was like watching him hurt his foot, which in a way they are. Like, there are people around him, but they don't notice it happening as it happens. so it's not as bad as I originally thought it was. And also, I didn't realize that Nori like blames herself right away, which is
yeah, but it's just silly. But yeah, I remember that. I remember thinking that was silly.
yeah, like she comes back and she's like, I should have been here, and it's like, well, would you have even been helping him? Like it seems like he thought he could do it himself.
Or like she would have done it by herself and broken her foot. But that's also what could have happened.
Yeah, so I'm just like, it's unclear. She gets like upset she should have been here, and then she starts like questioning like, I shouldn't be wasting time with a stranger, and I'm like, I don't get that from here. If anything, the other Harfoot should have helped. Like, and again, I remember it being a bit more harsh, where like a bunch of Harfoot stood around watching. That's not the case. They're busy doing their thing, and just the way they shot it. It leaves open room for someone to come and help him. I think they could have maybe shot it in a sequence that it happens more quickly and no one is there, no one is able to come and help him. But again, Nori, nothing you can do. And I even made this note. I'm not really sure you could even lift that pole. Like you're a little Harfoot, and your dad is there to help build this tent. So like they needed a strong person to build this tent. I don't know if you would have been asked to even be part of this. So like, yeah. So I just don't. She's upset. No one. I remember people blaming her, but instead, she blames herself. So again, I misremembered this scene.
And Poppy stands up to Malva when she starts talking about Largo not being able to migrate. Like, Poppy's like, mind your beeswax or something like that.
Does she say mind your fire?
Yeah, she said mind your something.
Yeah.
I didn't actually write it down.
I thought I heard mind your fire, and I'm like, I don't know what that means, because like the Harfoots don't have an established cultural thing around fire yet, not that I know of. So I'm kind of confused. At least the dwarves can get away with a lot of their lines that might not land by saying it's dwarven culture and we haven't really seen it, and if they're gonna make references to mountains or whatnot, you can kind of see it. The Harfoots though, they struggle from like, it's unclear what their culture is exactly, so when they say lines like that, I don't really understand what that means. But yeah, we're back with Galadriel.
Yeah, we meet Halbrand, so this is the first time we're seeing Halbrand.
Luckily she stumbled upon a raft so she could rest though.
Yes. And there's also the worm. I wrote Leviathan, but
yeah,
they
call it the worm. Yeah, either way.
And then we have the looks can be deceiving line.
Oh, you picked up on that too. So I hinted.
I wrote a little on the nose.
So a few episodes ago, not episodes of the show, but of our channel, I mentioned we're gonna make a note of something Sauron says early on that relates to the clues of him being Sauron, and that's one of them. Looks can be deceiving, and it cuts to him, and he gives like this like evil eye, like looking like
could be
so, you know, I actually like that line, and I think it's great. And Halbrand, I actually like the Halbrand actor too. I think he's doing a good job here. And this action set piece here with the worm, it's chaotic and fun. It's kind of, this is the kind of chaos I wanted more from the troll scene, where we could see people.
I wrote like the raft survivors seem believably distressed.
Yeah.
Whereas Galadriel's still like calm, cool, collected. So it's like else.
But she is tired. So she like when they finally let her up on the raft, she like lies down and like is like, she's exhausted. So she knows she could not make it back to land at this point. Like she knows she needed this raft.
Yeah. And Halbrand is also like calm under the pressure, and he just separates himself from the rest of the raft.
Yeah.
So maybe that like that goes to him like maybe not being quite human, I guess, because most humans would panic.
Yes. And there's something. I mean, I mentioned that like, is it maybe a clue? Like, so the fact that Halbrand survives, and he survives in almost a nonchalant way. Like, oh, I got my second raft over here, and I'm just gonna paddle around. Is it because he can kind of control or like talk to the worm? and tell it to leave, because he it doesn't come back for his little raft, and it's now just gone after eating a couple people. So
Yeah, it doesn't come back, does it?
no, so maybe there's another clue there. And then I also I don't know if we're here yet on your notes, but when they are together on their raft, just the two of them, and his necklace drops out of his shirt, do you think he did that on purpose?
Yeah, I know that comes up later, but yes, I do. I thought that's what I thought.
Yeah, he does this on purpose to like start leading her down a path to who he is trying to pretend to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think we go to the dwarfs first before we get there. So Elrond.
You're right.
Elrond lets. It seems like Elrond lets Durin win. I think we find out later he did. And Durin is kind of a sore winner. And Elrond has Durin escort him out. Then we have that whole thing. We talked about this before. Elrond missed a lot, 20 years. Durin is mortal.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting dynamic for like a friendship between mortals and immortals.
Yeah.
And how they interact. Like the immortal might not appreciate that 20 years is like a generation.
Yes.
for immortals.
No, I've said it. I said it when we first watched this episode, and I'll say it again here. This is a great scene, and it's one of the best written scenes in the entire show. Is this moment here where we actually get to see an elf realizing they are out of touch with the other races because of their immortality, and like Elrond is finally understanding like what it is to mean to like what a life means, because it's not just like showing up every 20 years or randomly, like because elves can just do that. They have nothing bad will happen in Valinor. They can just pop in whenever. Here, if you miss, like you said, 20 years, you miss everything. So I really like this scene. As far as Elrond losing deliberately, he's gonna lose this. I do not want an elf to win this battle. I know elves are super strong, but I think if he does lose this deliberately, I hope he was at least kind of tired. Like, yeah, because elves can't. I mean, they are really good at a lot of things, but there needs to be some things that they're not good at, and that's like the point of why these other races are needed to help with the ring, for example, and all this stuff. So like I do think that the dwarf should win this contest. Otherwise it's kind of silly to have this contest and elves can just barge in whenever.
That's a good point.
so while he may have done it deliberately, I do think he was like, hey, I'm tired of this, like even if I win they could kick me out or whatever, like who cares, I'm just gonna lose here and talk to him. Which, yeah, I think he should have done that almost immediately if he wasn't gonna go all the way. So, but yeah, I really like this lift scene.
Yeah, I said Elrond seems sincere.
Yes.
And then we go to meet the family. So Disa's like a sober second half to Durin. She's more welcoming to Elrond. And we get our first taste of like dwarven hospitality.
Yep. And this is where we see both those characters are really fun on the screen together, so that's why I hope we see more of them together. And I've seen some people say they don't like it, and to that I was thinking, imagine Gimli with his wife, whoever that might be. How do you think that scene would look? And I think it would look something very similar to this. So yeah. I really think these two actors are working the scene brilliantly here.
And then I commented, so the dwarves sing to the mountain to know where and where not to dig, and I wrote, this seems like something Celebrimbor would admire if he heard that. And we learned that Durin raised and kept this tree that Elrond gave him for all these years. So he never forgot Elrond. He was always like important to him.
Yeah.
Even though he's kind of, so that was a nice touch. So we're back on the. Unless you have more to say, I think we're at the raft. So this is when
Yeah.
Halbrand, deliberate. That's when the Halbrand seal is revealed, and I agree. I think it's deliberate, and he also like kind of provokes her, says, "Where are you running?"
Yeah.
And then he has no like he reveals straight up, oh, it was orcs in the Southlands.
Yeah. So
that
this is,
pissed me off.
what I wrote down is wait. What is Halbrand's plan?
So this is all very. This seems like it could be calculated.
Yeah, it's all calculated, but I don't get what, because we know what happens. I'm still unsure of why he does this here. I guess when we see those episodes, I'll be able to maybe connect the dots. But from my understanding, it is kind of, I don't know if it's needed for there to be a battle down in the Southlands.
Yeah.
But luckily for both of them, including Sauron here, they'll have some other ways of transportation soon. But we're not there yet.
Okay, so we have Bronwyn running home, and then I guess we're in the tunnels too with Arondir. So the tunnel visuals are good. There's flooded bits. It feels creepy. Then these hands pull Arondir in.
Yeah.
Into the seaweed or whatever it is. And then Bronwyn comes home. She sees a hole in the floor, like a slasher movie feel.
Oh yeah, like this is a great scene, and I said it back then as well. Like this, we take for granted the weakness of orcs compared to our heroes in the original trilogy, but this is more the way it feels probably when regular humans are fighting them. And I even put this note down that might interest some people. This is probably as close as we're going to get, at least for the time being, to the scouring of the Shire. It's something along these lines, where it is like a horror movie. Like these monsters are coming out of the hole in the floor, and just one can take on an entire household. So that it's extremely creepy, and I think it's done well here.
I mean, I thought it was a little. There's parts that are like you have to suspend your disbelief a bit.
So one
because like here the one thing I noticed, like, so Bronwyn is able to run away. Why doesn't Theo run away with her? She just goes back into hiding in that little cupboard. He definitely could have made a run break for it.
Yeah. So to your point there, that it's kind of forced, and then there's also moments when the action starts to happen where the hits are a little too hard for what I imagine should happen. Like just the way they filmed it, like a simple like punch like sends someone like flying across the room. So there's a little much on that regard, but in terms of like the visuals of everything, like the practical effects, those look pretty good still.
Yeah, I said orc is creepy. I know this is also the first time we've seen an orc in this show.
And they say this in their little behind the scenes snippet as well, but these aren't your like orcs from the original trilogy. These are a feral orcs that don't have a true society the way they did under the leadership of Sauron or Saruman even. So these orcs, like, they're wearing like a cow's skull as a helmet, and they're very like unsure of their footing sometimes. Like they're just kind of weird in like the environment. So yeah, I like it. I think it's a really good touch. But yeah, you're right. There's some silly forced scare here. But you know, you could say that about a lot of horror movies too. So I'm gonna give it a pass.
Okay, so I have it as back on this raft. There's a storm. So I don't know, it's kind of a cliche raft storm.
Yeah.
Thing, but whatever. So this is where it's kind of silly because Galadriel ties herself to this weight, and then it sinks. And
I mean,
so
I've done videos. We've done videos on this.
We've gone into this a lot, and then she ends up getting saved by Halbrand, which is also kind of a why.
Right.
But I mean, I guess maybe Halbrand sees Galadriel as a tool to eventually get what he wants.
Now this scene, yeah. So I think you're right, and I'm on the same track with you. Now my one additional question is, when he does save her, he notices the dagger, and he recognizes who she is in that moment.
Oh, okay.
So he's already decided to save her. So he already had a plan with this elf woman. He was like, how am I going to use this elf woman to get what I want? And then he goes in to save her and realizes who she is.
I missed that. Okay,
Yeah, so he sees the dagger and takes it out of her belt to cut the rope with, and he's looking at this dagger. So he recognizes who this dagger belonged to, and I think he's putting together who she is based on that dagger. I don't know what that means either, though, because I don't know why he cares that it's Galadriel or not. You know what I mean? Like, what does that matter? You were already going to use her.
So I wrote. I hate to bring it back to Star Wars, but I wrote like it could be like an Emperor Anakin dynamic. Like the Emperor wanted Anakin to be his apprentice.
Oh.
Anakin was the chosen one, so the Emperor's like, oh, if I like turn their chosen one to my apprentice, that is so embarrassing for the Jedi.
You might be onto something. You might have just broken this thing wide open.
I want this to be my apprentice.
Yeah, no, that you might have really come onto something here. We might have to make a separate video on that topic alone, because that's interesting. That would explain any kind of weird decision Sauron makes can be explained with, I want this person to convert because that's my goal. Not whether or not Galadriel's worth saving or whatever. I want her to convert because she means something to the elves.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
The northern armies.
Exactly.
I can turn her.
And we're jumping ahead, but we know what happens. We kind of know where he goes with this, and in a way, he does try what you've just hinted at. So that's interesting. That takes away a lot of the criticism if that's his motive here. It is weird still that he does want to save her before knowing that part. He still is like, okay, I need this elf for some reason. He probably is using any elf to try to get in with the elves, and when he finds out it's Galadriel, he's probably over the moon. I now have a commander to help me get in there. Yeah.
So we're back to Norari and Poppy, and I think I guess the firefly visuals are a nice touch, and the stranger can speak to the fireflies. But then we have the dead firefly, so that invokes kind of an ominous feeling.
True. And that's why some people were like, oh, that he could be Sauron, because he's doing this weird thing with the fireflies.
Yeah.
But, I mean, because they're fireflies, it does have this, like, connotation of being, like, good in a way. Like, like almost like a fairies, you know what I mean? Like it's got this whimsical, magical element to it. So I never really picked up on the firefly stuff as being evil. Yeah. So where we go next?
I just said I think we're meeting the Dwarf King, Durin's dad, and he's cool.
Yes.
That's all I wrote. That's what
I wrote. Well, I wrote. The King of the Dwarves the actor does a great job in his limited few lines and scene, because he commands the entire scene. Like he does a great job of how he moves and speaks in this scene. So very well done by the actor, and the directors for getting that image, because it works where it's funny. He's like, it's such an interesting character, and part of it is because we don't see much of him. But another part of it is you see a scene like that, and you're fixated on him, and so you want to see him more, and so you have this like this longing, and they always leave the audience wanting more kind of thing. So yeah, very good job on that part. And
then I think we have Theo with the hilt. And
yeah,
so it's like a ring-like dynamic. I don't think I even mentioned. We didn't talk about. Maybe I skipped it. It didn't seem important, but I mean, there's a whole scene of them finding the hilts under the floorboards at Waldrick's barn.
Yeah. That one we kind of danced over when it came to Waldrick almost punching out that kid. I made a joke of it a few episodes ago where they bring up Theo's dad in that scene, and they
Theo's dad could be Tom Cruise.
yeah, exactly. Oh, and just like how the whole town knows about this romantic situation with Bronwyn and an elf, which is very taboo in that town. But yeah, so I will say, like, even the people who don't like the show for the plot and some of the acting, they have to at least give credit that the show does a lot of practical effects, and that's something we need to at least hold up and say, hey, this is what we want more of. You can use CGI around the edges to make it come together, but this just looks better when it's done this way versus pure CGI. And so I do really appreciate the show going in that direction. For all these different scenes, everything from like the actual sets of the towns and like these key scenes for the elves and dwarves, to even the shipwreck scene. Obviously CGI is going around in the background, but they actually did do like this kind of floating shipwreck tank scene in real water. So like it's even that scene has weight to it when things crash and move. So I think that's an important part that gets overlooked with all the discourse around the lore and the dialogue and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. They said the migration of the tower is a cool visual. That's like a lot of people walking there.
Yep.
And then I think it ends. The ship rescues.
Yeah.
on
So
the raft.
yeah, I end my last comment is, wow. Luckily, Galadriel is saved again by someone, because now she was stuck on a raft with Sauron, and then a ship happens to come by. Just back to the one thing you mentioned about the town, kind of migrating. The set pieces, like, that's what I'm talking about. Where like a small scene like that still looks really neat because they took the time to build a set and they could use it as a backdrop. Or in this case, it's like a foreground, like little partial gate and wall type thing. And it's really cool to see that because they do the same thing in Fellowship. You've got a lot of these scenes where they're kind of traveling, and some of it is on location and some of it is inside of a studio, but it's always got this, there's always things for them to actually interact with, versus you see some like Marvel stuff and the whole thing is green screen. Like there's no physical props or anything.
Yeah.
So I just really appreciate that they have like physical trees and physical stuff for them to walk on, where it looks and it feels like when they step down on things, it feels real. When they touch wood and touch things, there's an impact there that you get that's missed when it's just a pure CGI thing. So I want to make sure that the show gets the credit it deserves in that regard. At the very least, if you're going to disagree with us on all this other stuff, I think you'll at least appreciate that for what it is. But yeah, that's about it. This episode, I thought, this is a problem I had with the show. I remember at the beginning was their pacing. This episode, I liked this episode. On second visit, I think it's stronger than the first episode. I remember the first time I watched, I thought this was a bit of a weaker episode, despite having some strong moments, because you don't have heart-wrenching emotional scenes combined with action, combined with a little bit of comedic relief. You don't kind of get that fluid transition of different feelings. This one, it's still kind of setting things up, but it's now just being a bit more serious tone, and so you don't really have the contrast with a battle with another type of scene. So it does kind of feel more heavy and therefore kind of felt longer in a way. But I actually like this episode better just because I think the stronger notes in this episode are some of the best notes maybe in the whole season. So yeah, that's my sort of take on an episode like this, where you have to be ready for more heavy, emotionally charged scenes instead of being able to just kind of have fun with some of the characters. And we're gonna get to some more fun scenes eventually, but right now it is a bit more emotional than most people probably want. But yeah, I guess that's it for this one. Let us know down below what you guys thought about episode 2. I know it's been about a year, so give it another watch if you need to, because I think you will be surprised. Some of the stuff does come around on you.